Hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ. Of course, all of you that are able to take part in this show live are the co hosts. And today we are going to take yet another televised series and use that to use as a mind fuel. We're going to use it as a foundation for our world building. So, we over here, we love our tabletop role playing games, and we accept the fact that sometimes we get writer's block. It's difficult for us to have an imagination about something. Real life takes precedence, and sometimes we need a little spark. So today we're going to take a look at the televised show, The Sons of Anarchy, and can we make that as a tabletop role-playing game? Stay tuned. Once again, hello everyone. And yes, we're going to take a motor club, motorcycle gang in common parlance. The Sons of Anarchy was a televised show. I believe it was 7 seasons back in the early to mid 2000s. And as a person who loves a great premise and a tabletop role player, I like to go back to some of these shows and find out, like, why did it capture people's attention, and then, you know, maybe your players don't remember a lot of these things, especially if the premise was great but the execution was bad. Now, it lasted for 7 seasons here in the States, and which meant that it captured a lot of people's attention. It was also the heyday of the anti-hero. We love ourselves some anti-heroes. Take a look at the popularity of nearly every single crime story, and we love our anti-heroes. And we also like to find out, like, what motivates people to be anti-establishment, and that's what we're going to talk about in the Sons of Anarchy. And we're going to find that there are actually a number of tabletop role-playing games that already represent the anti-establishment, criminal-minded players. Something that happens seasonally in our community is the idea of running an evil campaign, air quotes, right? And how can you run an evil campaign? Well, first of all, there are already games that do this, and the Sons of Anarchy is one of them. So let's get ourselves on the same page and then get into what the televised show shows us about motorcycle culture, whether some blend in between, vacillating between ultimate freedom and criminal organization, a rebellious nature and freedom, or are these people just a hedonistic destructive force happening in the background of a very large country? So the Sons of Anarchy is a television show that represents a motor club, MC, and two of the most notable things you'll see about them. There's a lot of notable things, but two of the most notable things is you will see them running relatively parallel down highways on motorcycles that seem to stretch forever. And yep, yeah, heathen, yeah, it had to go. It all of it had to go, man. You get to, when you're a person of a certain age, you get the little retreat up front and maybe a little empty parking spaces in the back end and whatnot. And so, yeah, I didn't want to do the dreadlock comb over, so yeah, had to make a change. The wife loves it and hates it at the same time. Says that she loves the look, but it makes me look so young that she feels like she's robbing the cradle. But anyway, actually, let me throw the messages up in here. So One of the most notable things, of course, are the motorcycles themselves, and how the motorcycles represent this uh, rebellious, anti-establishment nature when you're on the open road. Yeah, I didn't get it quite down to the scrapety scrape, but I do have like one of the handheld razor jobbies. So I'm gonna see if the buzz cut lasts a little bit, like whether it's okay. Uh, Unfortunately, I don't have the perfect back ahead. I'm jealous of you guys that have like the perfect back ahead. Even the ladies too. Like you got the shortcut, and it's like the back of the head is nice and smooth. I don't have that. I've got folds in the back, unfortunately, and it's not. It runs in the family, so it's not quite fat. There's like bone underneath it, which is like messed up. So yeah. As a kid, I didn't get that auntie that like rubbed the back of the head when it was like when the skull was soft. I didn't get one of those. It's unfortunate. Um, the other thing that we notice about these biker gangs or motorcycle gangs are the vests known as a cut, which is kind of interesting because I didn't know about this. And uh, let's see if I can go. Uh, no, no motorcycle vest. And let's see. Let's go with images here. So, one of the most notable things that you'll is that I'm lucky. I know of which the fools you speak. Yeah, make you make it sound like it's a like a like a mentor. You know what I mean? Like I know of which the fools you speak. Yes. Uh, but yeah, these motorcycle vests are very notable, and in a creative aspect, it is not only is it identifiable amongst like the motorcycle gangs that we think of with the leathers and all that kind of stuff, but it represents much more than just a piece of clothing. Of course, we expect it to be protective, but it also is a symbol of their choices, along with the tats and all that kind of stuff, wearing the ink. But um, where and how the vests are worn, what's put on them, who gets to wear and not wear them, and such. And there's a whole cultural, like, I don't know how to explain it, like a cultural motif of sorts that I think we can borrow from for tabletop games. Now, I'm not suggesting that everybody start making motorcycle games, although we do have we we already have a game that basically does big finger to corporations and government, which is cyberpunk, and many games that have formed itself out of like the cyberpunk genre. Heck, do a search for any tabletop role playing game that's got the word in it, like cyber, chrome, neon, interface, and things like that, and you'll end up finding those. Oops. Uh, let's go see if we can find ourselves some of the vests from the Sons of Anarchy show, and oops, and point out some of the features. See if I can find one here. Yeah, there we go. So, like for example, here we've got some of the vests, and one of the cool things is, yes, young one. He even says, "Oh, different stats for different bikes. That include magical tattoos." Yep, I can imagine magical leather. Yeah. Magical leather curing technique in the universe, so different vests have different bonuses, not just armor. Yep, yep. Absolutely. And not only in the television show do we see them riding motorcycles. Of course, it depends on what kinds of motorcycles. Each gang had like a thematic motorcycle, and then each gang they call themselves an MC Motor Club. And if you take a look at the vest that's above me, see if I can I'm gonna remove the overlay for just a moment, um, and then switch places here. Um, at the top, of course, the banner across the top is the name of the motor club, Sons of Anarchy. And then you've got the logo, and you absolutely positively you got to get a tat of the logo, right? This one's got the Reaper with like an automatic rifle, and then there's a scythe attached to the end of it, and there's a Grim Reaper there, and holding an orb or a skull with the anarchy symbol on it. And then at the bottom, we have ourselves the California. Where are they located? What region are you there? And right next to, in the middle of the symbol, you'll see to the right of it is a small patch that literally says MC, and that stands for Motor Club. And um, be rest assured, especially those of us here in the States, that you don't want to go misrepresenting yourself as a member of a motor club, right? Here's the front of our main character. There is this main character's vest as we take a look at it, and you'll see this curved patch here, SAMCRO, and then at the one of the main characters. And then at the top of the vest, to the left, you'll see President and then Men of Mayhem. And then to the right, you'll see Redwood Original. And these patches, they don't just pick them randomly. They are given to the various members. For example, there's literally a vest that just says Prospect. That's someone who gets a vest and they have to earn the patches that are on them. I'm just seeing if there's a Prospect one available. Now, of course, this is a televised show, so does this gang really exist? No, but I'm sure they did some research into the vest culture, how it's worn, what's put on them, and who they are and what they represent. And I think one of the great things that we can learn from something like this is that when world building, especially if you want to make a faction, come up with some like traditions and language and clothing and behaviors and things like that kind of represent themselves in the culture in which they reside, right? I mean, one of the things that's really really cool about this idea of a motorcycle gang is the idea of the bond, the friendship. I've been to a number, and listen, I am far from the Midwest culture, partially because a number of the motorcycle gangs tend to be racially divided, but I've been to a number of funerals here in the Midwest in Central Ohio, and if one of them was ever a bike rider, other motor club members, if you ride a bike, they show up in large numbers, and will it's like a brotherhood, sisterhood kind of thing where they just show up in mass. I remember an old story that gave me man tears about a kid that was being picked on in school, and a local biker gang found out about it, and so to protect the child, they would pick the child up from home and take the child to school in the back of the motorcycles, and then when he was leaving school, they would show up in 30 plus strong to take this kid back home and stuff like that, and made him the coolest kid on the block. To be honest with you, I think he was like 10 or 12 years old or something like that. And yeah, motorcyclists will come in mass. I once participated in a walkathon and here in Ohio, and it was for I can't even remember. It was, I believe it was for breast cancer, or was it ALS? Didn't matter. I want to say about 150 bikers showed up to celebrate and endorse and support what was happening locally, and they were they were lined up on either side of a bridge. And then as you walked by, they all had their motorcycle engines just revving them up as people ran by and walked by and things like that. And very awesome. Yeah, when I even says I recall a very short-lived GURPS game that took place approximately enough in the Fallout universe. Sadly, there wasn't much use for a character to shine. Their party stuck basically to one town. Oh no! You gotta explore the world. Oh man, if you're gonna bother playing a Fallout game, you gotta explore like the how wild that world is. But the televised version is really good, really good. I hope it. I'm pretty sure it got enough attention that they're gonna do like a second season, or at least like a I don't want to say a spin-off, but like another one of those capsule cities, you know what I mean, down in the underground and stuff. Maybe focus on different characters and see what they're doing and stuff too. They could do that as well. The the other thing about the brotherhood of it all is the fact that it's a great reason for bringing the players into it, but if the players are not going to be part of an established society, you can really reinforce this by basically describing how terrible the regular society is in the first place. Yeah, the vaults. Yeah. I was like, what are they called? They're just called the vaults. Yeah. You got to explore the rest of the world. How bizarre it is too, and having some fun with it as well. Even if it's not Fallout trademark, right? It's just a version of it. Yeah. Heck, we love ourselves some post-apocalyptic societies, and motorcycle gangs kind of fit right into that as well. We love ourselves some Mad Max style, riding a vehicle across the blasted landscape. Hey, M Square, yeah, they're going. They're completely gone. Yeah. Had to have the change. Gotta make that change. Literally made a video. My wife cut them off, and oh, thank you so much. Made a video promising to let everybody know that she wasn't the one that forced me to do it. And like I said earlier, so she was afraid because she's so used to them. I had them for 17 years. Although I've had dreadlocks longer than that, 17 years ago I had cut them and start growing them back, and before that I had them. But yeah, you got the, sometimes the harvest doesn't grow back the way it wants to over time and stuff like that. Yeah, sometimes in the back area, you just can't, the vegetation just doesn't grow like it used to. So. Not quite bald yet, but I do have my shaving tools. So if it gets a little bit too got a little bit too much of the tire around the edges, with nothing on the top, I'll just shave the whole thing. Yeah, I know. Oh man, yeah. Oh man, it's new. It feels like someone's standing behind me, and every once in a while blowing on the back of my neck. That's the one thing that I'm kind of get used to. I gotta be like you normies and not be in my motorcycle club rebellious nature anymore. So anyway, back to Sons of Anarchy. Hard segue back to that. One of the things, especially, look, I'm going to make a comparison to Cyberpunk and Blades in the Dark, because a lot of games are like that, where the players are specifically set against the established quo. Wild West, like Deadlands or Boot Hill, are also similar to like the Sons of Anarchy, and with the Sons of Anarchy motorcycle club being in a modern setting, but it's really very much the same thing. Thanks, I think, Heathen. Yep, exactly. And Mike Marin says, but I like the analogy. D&D adventurers are often like a motorcycle gang, outcasts with a common purpose, but big variation internally compared to, say, a military squad. Exactly. some of the things that I really liked about the oh, you're okay. One of the things I really liked about the television show is sh now, mind you, I'm basing this off the televised version, so if somebody wants to take a look at the show or do go down a Wikipedia pathway or, Google deep dive or something like that about the show, uh, is that they show us some of the internal workings of how these motorcycle gangs work. And now, mind you, from the outside, us normies would look at them and go, well, they're a gang, but they call themselves a club. And one of the things that really sets them apart is like, how does a group literally based around anarchy operate? So one of the really cool things is they always show the members of the club. They have a special room, and there's a table with like the club symbol. Let me see if I can pull this back up here. Um, the oops, that's not what I wanted to do, but I'm going to do it anyway. So this logo, this Sons of Anarchy logo, is let me see if I can get it even bigger. Yeah, whatever. That Sons of Anarchy logo was literally carved bas relief into a wooden desk. Was a big, almost like they basically hacked down a tree and did it in one piece, and they sat around it and had these votes and things like that, and it's really cool. And I think, like, for Dungeons and Dragons and other factions and whatnot, to have a method of rulership. And what they did was they always called it, you got to take it to a vote. So the president would be there and everybody sat around, and they had a sign on the wall that said, don't ride, don't vote, right? If basically, if you can't ride a bike, you don't get a vote. And they would vote on everything from like all kinds of criminality to voting people in, getting prospects in, and leveling them up with new patches on their vests and new responsibilities and things like that. And literally, like anarchy, they would decide like life and death for other people and members of their own group by a vote. So you would hope that there would be a random number of people, and even some of the members who were in jail or arrested or something like that, somebody would go get their proxy vote and try to be as truthful as they could. Like, hey, listen, I'm voting for them out of proxy. They're voting against it, but I'm voting for it. And they would throw their vote down, and then they would just count up, and they would go, hey, are we right? Going with a rival drug cartel? Are we fighting another gang? Are we getting new members? Are we doing, all kinds of stuff? And they would just vote on it. And I was just like, wow, okay, I guess that's the way that's how you do it. So not quite anarchy in the sense of like chaotic neutral, like I get to do whatever I want, but there is a little bit of it, right? And one of the cool things, first of all, damn near most of us live in a civilized society, whether we like it or not. And sometimes, the creative part of our brains bristles against the rules, the hard rules. So players want to join a game where they get to make the decision, and they get to, throw up the middle fingers to society and corporations and governments and things like that. And that's where I think, like, the combination of like Dungeons and Dragons adventurer, cyberpunk, and Wild West kind of combines together as well. Blades in the Dark, of course, neo-Victorian era, all kind of seem to be in the same thing, same general genre of rebellion. Now, unfortunately, when you rebel, it also means that you're going to be in conflict with a lot of other people. And that's one of the coolest things about the show, is that there is no shortage of enemies and adversaries. So there's always rival biker gangs, and we don't see this too often today, but in older versions of Dungeons & Dragons back in the OSR, there were rival adventuring groups that were going down in some of the dungeons. And one of the things that pushed players forward to dive deep into the dungeons was the time factor. If you just kept going back to town and resting and doing what was it, 15-minute work days where you'd have an adventure and do a long rest for 8 hours and adventure a little bit more and do 15 minutes and long rest for 8 hours, you couldn't do it because there were rival adventuring groups that would go and get the damn stuff before you got there. You almost never see that today, but in the old games, you could literally roll on random encounter tables and it would say rival adventuring group, and you could go down in a dungeon and get slim pickings if you took too long. Now, mind you, storytelling wise, you might want to, how the hell did they get past all the traps you were supposed to get past? But whatever. You'd have to do a little bit of rationalization, but it also brings up the fact that you're not the only ones out there. Also in the show, we see our because our main characters are anti-establishment, they don't have regular jobs. And even if they did have regular jobs, many times because of their chosen affiliation, the rest of society doesn't like them. And now we do see this in, say, fantasy gaming. We do see this in games like Five Torches Deep and Torchbearer and some of the other side OSR games where if you choose to be an adventurer, you are choosing a profession that the rest of society doesn't necessarily respect, right? It's like how some societies look at those who touch dead bodies, and some of those people have become the untouchable, or like being an executioner and covering your face or something. Like maybe you're necessary for society, but it doesn't mean that people will treat you like a regular person. They feel like, if you're going to choose that type of life, you're kind of on the edge, and that's good and bad. That's really cool because it kind of makes you feel like, yeah, I'm a rebel, right? And players walk into town or ride into town or whatever, and the young folk are looking them up and down like, yeah, I want to be like you. You know what I mean? And but the ones in control, at least outwardly, have to be like, folding arms and pouting like, you need to get out of our town. Plenty of things like that, especially in, like, if you ever take a look at Western television and movies, you'll see the bounty hunters and the criminal syndicate or whatever riding the town on their horses, and everyone's kind of like has that standoffish kind of nature, but a little bit scared as well, and for good reason. And that really brings into the social, that really makes a social churning that players may have to deal with. Like, maybe they really do want to save the townsfolk, but the townsfolk don't appreciate them being there in the first place and think that they're liars and cheats and thieves and whatnot. Whereas on the other hand, the players may not want to protect a town that has been ignoring them or throwing rotten vegetables at them when they pass by, and now that all of a sudden they need their help, and the players are like, I don't want to give you help, F you. And every aspect in between. A lot of times I can imagine trying to use social tactics to get the players to get what they want, but then you always have what a great opportunity to add in some NPCs that maybe this is their opportunity to rebel against the society they live in, or on the other hand, maybe some of the rebels that are with the players may want to take this opportunity to rejoin back into society. Now, when we looked at the show, there were some people because joining the club, especially the Sons of Anarchy and some of these other motorcycle clubs, like joining is a permanent life decision because you don't just get to leave. Now, personally, I feel like how a faction treats you when you disagree or want to leave reflects on how honorable I think that faction is, but they go to some lengths to when meting out justice when it comes to people wanting to leave. Like, for example, if you leave the group and you've got tats, first of all, they call it a cut or a cuttin. It's the vest. They call the vest cuts, and where it comes from, I don't know. I think it's like an Irish word or something like that. But anyway, so they always take your leather vest from you, so you can never wear it again. If you've got tats, you have to cover them up. So if you've got biker tats from the group, and they show a guy that literally had his back tat, which was his whole back tat was the group's tat, and it was blacked out. Now, there was someone who was running around who still had his tats after he left the group and had his own normal life, and they strung him up and they made him choose knife or the flame, and he said flame, and they took a welding torch and blasted his back to take the tat off of his back. And I was like, oh, that's horrible. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. But the guy left the organization and want to have lead a regular life and be with his wife and kid, and they took it off of him. I was like, holy shit, this is wild. So yeah, the players may join or be part of, or even heck, establish their group, but what is the outcome of that? Meaning, like, if the players must leave, or if the players are forced to, and this happens a lot, especially with criminal procedural television shows, which member is going to turn on the group and turn state's evidence and sell out the group? And how does the group solve this if they find out that one of their members is done? Mike Mayer says cut is apparently from cutoff vest. I don't know. It comes across like that's not where it comes from, but I'm pretty sure it's probably similar to that, or slang, right? all words are made up, including slang words. So yeah, something like that as well. Yeah, with the vests and all that kind of business. Let's see if we can get some of these back. We'll put this up here too, showing a lot of the vests and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Or let me see some regular motorcycle club vests of all different types, if we can get some in here. Oh, I'm still showing them a thing. But anyway, a lot of times, of course, the vests themselves kind of alert everybody, including authority, as to, like, they call themselves the Outlaws, or they call themselves, Sons of Anarchy literally has a Grim Reaper with an automatic rifle and a scythe on it, and with blood on it. It kind of it doesn't quite let other people know that you're here to feed the homeless or save kittens or something like that, right? Like it kind of tells authority that you're willing and able to be down. And one of the great things that you see in the show is a willingness by the other members. Like they almost never ask why. They're just like, where? Which is kind of cool, right? It's like, I can imagine the brotherhood of it, and of the act of where you get together with your friends and you're just like, hey guys, listen, I got this issue. And their only response to you is when and where. They don't ask like why. They don't ask about like, well, I've got something to do. They're just like, what do you need, dude? I'll be there. And if you're beating somebody's ass, they just join in. They don't even ask why. They're just like, hey, can I start kicking some ass with you? And they're like, yeah. Crazy, but it's kind of cool too, right? And I can see where that dopamine hit of a draw can really pull in. Yeah, a group symbol or motif can be good for an RPG party. I currently have a D&D group that each have a similar magic ring. Yep. Yeah, really cool, yeah. And similarly, removal of that ring can quite dramatically represent being ostracized from the group. Yeah, absolutely. A ring, a tattoo, what's all the different kinds of jewelry that you can wear in like Dungeons and Dragons? Like they have you can wear like bracers. The big thick leather bracers are kind of cool. I think it's called a torque. It wraps around the upper part of your arm. You've got like necklaces and medallions. You've got rings. Heck, you could even have like earrings or things like that, jewelry, some kind of like material wrap that could be wrapped around the neck or around the head or around the wrist or the arm or dangle off a belt or something like that, that kind of represents your allegiance to a particular group or organization. And what another great thing about adding that into the game is the player's actions will reflect on the group, and then later on the social perception of the group will then reflect back on the players. So it's a feedback loop, right? So if the players commit a lot of destruction, then the group will be known for causing sabotage and destruction. But now the players need help, or they need to relax somewhere or whatever, and maybe the current town they go to, they're like, we don't want you here because you're going to destroy our town, despite the fact that the players have no intention of doing so. They may be perceived as such, and having to fight against that. So caring for the reputation of the group may also be something. There it is. There, thank you there, Mike. Says Unsquared says, apparently the vests are also called Kut, Kutte, from the German Kutten, meaning robes. That's where I thought it came from. Yeah. Okay, it's German. I know I'm butchering the pronunciation. I'm sure once it got here, it just became known as cuts, because KUT would just become the CUT. Yeah, I'm sure that's how it came about. But yeah. Hey, now, if you wanted, how fun would it be to do a urban Arcana tabletop game where everything in Dungeons and Dragons exists up till the modern day? Now, I'm not exactly talking Shadowrun. What I'm referring to is that biker gangs today would be the Wild West of yesteryear, which would be like Dungeons and Dragons, Knights and Adventurers in the past, but it just moved till today. So the vests are the robes of like wizards and things like that. Be kind of cool. Mike Marin says, also an ally faction might want to see their signet ring. An enemy guard might block them entry for their outfit. Yep, exactly. Or only certain vest wearers are allowed in a tavern. A quest to get a jacket, yeah. And all the social faux pas that may happen along the way. Are you allowed to wear that vestment? Are you allowed to have that particular ring or something? Hey, let's say you figure out a way to get in. You show the ring. You're wearing the vestment. You get inside, and then when you get inside, there are enemies of the group, right? Which also makes a lot of sense and really makes it a little bit more personal when you have, like, okay, let's pick Dungeons and Dragons. Maybe the hobgoblins or the trolls or whatever have always been slaughtered by the people who wear this vestment or this ring or this thing, and so they associate you with that group. It doesn't matter you've never met them before. It's like us against them. Maybe the hobgoblins, it's the classic, like, I wear a necklace of ears or fingers or something. I mean, monstrous races and whatnot, but it could be that the rival group is your enemy simply because of your association with the group you're with and their association with their group, right? Also, if you want to get away from the all goblinoids are always evil, maybe they are members of a group that are the enemy group, and whenever you see them with, like, I don't know, they're called the blood fist rising or something like that, and they always wear like a red scarf, or they dip their hand in blood, or they tattoo like red insignia on the back of their arms and forearms and palms of their hand, whatever, right? And whenever you see it, that that's an enemy. So if you see goblins and orcs and whatnot, but you see that red insignia, wrapped around their hand, they wrap, or they pull out their pocket and they wrap like a red scarf around their hand, like you would for boxing wraps or something. And it's like, yeah, okay. Yeah, Mike Baron says, I really like the kind of trash film Blight. Yep, me too. I liked it too. With the modern day cops and biker gangs and criminals, etc., coupled with fantasy races and various allegories of race and racial tensions and stuff. Yeah, I liked the world building. I mean, it wasn't the best execution, but I liked it. The graffiti on the walls and whatnot, the orc gangs on the street, and the elves that were like in the rich corporate areas and stuff because they were the beautiful ones. I I gotta admit, I really did like it. Actually, there were a lot of things in the background of that movie. Movie? Yeah, a dragon flying through the air that crossed the moon. There was a centaur cop and whatnot. I was like, it's kind of cool. I kind of like it. Wands were like weapons of mass destruction. Yeah, world building eye candy were fantastic. Me too. I think it was much maligned. I think people wished it came out better, but yeah, I liked it. Yeah, what was it? A wand could make a wish, and everybody wanted to get a little piece of that. Yeah, really fun. That was really fun. Some other things that I really think we could learn from or steal from, make an homage to with the Sons of Anarchy motorcycle gang is how do you survive on the outskirts of society? Now, in a medieval setting, we're talking about Dungeons and Dragons. Kind of everybody's on the outskirts of society, but basically what I mean by that is in a modern day context of the show, many of them didn't have regular jobs. So how did they earn money? Well, and then how did they disseminate that money amongst the group? And there was like a piracy honor code where everybody got equal share. So they voted on whatever pseudo criminal activity hustle they were involved in, right? And then whenever they brought those back, like one member of the charter would be, you would see on their vest too, somebody would be president, vice president, someone would be man at arms who handled like the weapons and training and was the first one, like a bodyguard, like the man at arms, like the bodyguard. Somebody was the secretary who noted all of the different choices that they made throughout. He basically was there to keep track of the history of the gang and the decisions of the gang and remind everybody, listen, we all voted to go this direction. You can't just rebel right now. And if you're trying to rebel or come up with your own thing, you need to take it back and put it to a vote so that we can all be involved in it. There was also a treasurer. The treasurer disseminated equal amounts of money to everybody. And also, one other thing that happened in the show, and this of course, in our modern day could rub people the wrong way because of how gender politics and things like that are happening. But a lot of the gangs, they had their old ladies. They call them old ladies. Your old man, your old lady. And it really didn't matter whether you were married or not. Everyone recognized openly whether that was your old lady or your old man. And then that person became untouchable. And so, hey, attractive woman comes into the group. Everyone's like trying to make a play. But the minute she accepts one of the bikers, that becomes his old lady. And then everybody's like, okay. But they also have an honor system of protecting those people. So the children, the extended family of the biker gang, hey, they get a cut of this money because we're going to try to take care of them. Now, of course, it's a television show. There's a lot of drama. Some people are, you also have people's real personalities. So some people aren't maybe as well liked as others. And there's always people trying to cut corners and whatnot. But you can have a lot of fun with it as well. The other great thing about having like motorcycles is you can very quickly get people to different places and regions without having to explain too much, right? When you see a bunch of the motorcycles driving down the road, we just assume that they got there in one piece. And then, of course, they're in a warehouse, they're in a factory, they're at the docks, they're in the mountains, they're in the desert. You really can just kind of hand wave it. And it's kind of cool to be able to do that in a tabletop game. Like, all right, you guys get on your bikes and you get there and you just come up with a number. Like you get there 12 hours later as you roll down, blah, 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 and then you just arrive. Although we even see one of our main characters is having like arthritic problems, probably kind of arthritis combination, carpal tunnel syndrome from holding onto the bars, and he's the president, but he's got the handshakes. Of course, the typical TV trope, right? If you focus in on the thing, it becomes the MacGuffin. It becomes the Chekhov's gun. And so, you see his hands shaking, and he's getting needle injections and whatnot. So it's about to come up at some point, and that could be pretty interesting, especially like, let's go with fantasy world, like someone's casting spells or something, and then you see they have to cast a spell, they're like grabbing their hand and it's shaking, and the player character's like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "It's taking a toll, man. Don't let anybody else know." And it's like, dude, you're the most powerful spellcaster in our group. If you go, we might be defenseless. Or other group members may say, "Hey, listen, that person with the highest rank, they got to go. They can't, if they can't do those somatic components, you know what I mean?" Or whatever. Or somebody gets curb stomped and their jaw's broken, and now they can't do any of their verbal component spell casting, and the other group is like, "Say something." You're like, "All right, dude, relax." Also, I think it would be really fun to create a rival group, right? Because then you get to play with a lot of NPCs, change the dynamic of other adversaries by having different members join and leave the group. So, for example, one of my favorite groups that I used to run in my Dungeons & Dragons group was a Medusa, and she was like a bounty hunter, and so she had like the cloak over her face, and had a longbow on her back, and her right-hand man was an ogre, and the ogre had a pet displacer beast, although some would argue that maybe the displacer beast had a pet ogre. And one of her scouts was a orc chieftain who had a number of orcs below them. But anyway, they were her forward runners, her scouts. And then she always had like a different band of like crunchies, cannon fodder behind her, whether they were like goblins or gnolls or something like that. But anyway, and this group would appear periodically with in various locations that the players were at, sometimes hunting for them, sometimes on a different mission. And the players kind of had like a grudging respect for this character, who they weren't quite evil, they were just anti-establishment, and they were kind of known for what they did. And you could create the same thing. You could put together like strange bedfellows and make them a rival group to the player characters. Like, oh, I don't know. There's what are some strange common like classic monsters, like a naga, a troll, 3 harpies, and I don't know, something else, right? Like, and a hellhound or whatever, and they kind of grouped together for some strange reason, or recruited or got together for survival and just never separated. And you're just like, wait, that's a weird group to put together, but maybe you came up with a good reason, right? Who knows? Maybe the naga saved the troll out of the acid pit, and the troll became loyal. And then, you know what I mean? Then you start stacking on things like that and come up with a little bit of story with them, reasons why. You don't even need to have a reason why. Another thing with the using the Sons of Anarchy as our foundation is the idea of like having chapters. So in chapters, patchovers. So the Sons of Anarchy is a group, a banner, and not only in different parts of a state, here in the States, but actually different states had different chapters. So they were technically the same group, but they were organized differently with different leadership and where they went. So they had allies where they went, including going overseas and going to Ireland, and they had another chapter that was established there. In addition to that, they also had something known as nomads. And nomads were members of the group, but they didn't belong to a particular chapter. They would just move around. Now, the good thing about that was they always found a home wherever they went. The bad thing was that if you had rival gangs out there, motorcycle clubs out there, and you were by yourself, because if you were a nomad, you're kind of like exiled, you're kind of by yourself, you might not have any backup. Whereas one of the great powers of these of the motorcycle club is having a lot of allies. And that's kind of a cool thing, especially if you start establishing that the players, and this is something that comes up on this channel a lot, giving the players a community to take care of. So an example would be players come into town, they want to save town from evil bad guys. We get the friction of the townsfolk don't want you there, but then come to find out that they worked it out, and the townsfolk are like, hey, thanks for saving us. But the players need to leave, but they also don't want the people to retreat back to their old ways. So maybe they leave behind members of their faction to handle the transition. So it's a great way to have like NPCs go, all right, and it's a great reward too. All right, player characters, we're going to do what you say, and we're on your side. It's kind of like in Blades in the Dark. In Blades in the Dark, you're neo-Victorian gang members, and part of it is you have a gang character sheet, and you want to take care of your gang, and your gang does things for you. So they could sit back, they could be guards, they could lend help, they could be there to add some greater intimidation or something like that. A strange bedfellows, a paladin and a rogue. Paladin is against the party for obvious reasons, so he has to pay a rogue to infiltrate the party circle. I love stuff like that. Yeah. And listen, you could pretty easy explain that, right? Like maybe the paladin and rogue are cousins, and the rogue is the rogue is like, you always thought you were better than me, and now you're coming to me for help. I'll go infiltrate the party for you. And the paladin is like, I begrudgingly need your help, right? And the players may go, that doesn't make any sense. Why would a rogue and a paladin be together? And it's like, well, they're related. They know each other from birth, right? Like, or something like that, or a promise, or heck, the rogue could have once been part of the paladin's organization and quit, and now he's living on the streets and whatnot. Still has his old, I don't know, paladin regalia. It's all dusty and dirty now. Doesn't wear the armor anymore, but still wears the dirty cloak. It's no longer white and gold now. It's just gray, but it's the same thing. You could make some great story elements out of things like that, where normally it shouldn't belong together, but then you get it and you're like, oh, it really, I get it. Yeah. Also, the motorcycles themselves, and mind you don't need to use motorcycles, but whether you use any kind of external functioning thing, maybe it's a vehicle, maybe it's an animal or something, taking care of it may be a really great thing to add into the story. So let's go with mounts for fantasy gaming, because mounted combat and mounts are always a little bit problematic. But if, like, butchering a common saying, if everyone's special, then no one's special. So if everyone has a mount, or mounted travel and combat is common in this world, then it pretty much equalizes everyone. So maybe there are people who ride on giant bats and manticores and hippogriffs and griffins and wyverns and giant insects or whatever, and they flying motorcycles themselves, anti-grav motorcycles. And you could really play with, like, how do you enhance them? How do you make them faster, more armor, more maneuverable, more fuel efficient, and things like that? Yeah, mounts themselves. How are they bred? What do they look like? Is my griffin? What's the bird portion of my griffin? Is it an eagle, a falcon, a hawk, a parrot, I don't know, other predatory birds, owls or something. What about the hindquarters of my griffin? Is it a tiger or a leopard or a puma or a panther or something? And players may have like their own special breed of mount, and some of it could just be like DLC skinning, like hey, roll on this table for your griffin's appearance, and you roll like roll. Oh, I got a snow falcon, and the back end of the. Oh, I got a panther. Oh, my griffin's black and white. That's really cool. Yeah. Oh yeah, crunchy stat obsessed power gamers would totally love statting out their bikes. Exactly. What kind of wheels do you pick? And tires. What kind of seat? Do you have saddlebags to put your stuff in it? Is there a weapon mount on the front of it or whatever? You know what I mean? What kind of sound does it make? How big is the engine and all that kind of stuff? Yeah, you could play around with that quite a bit, especially if you attach it to some form of like game mechanic attached to leveling up or special abilities or something like that. Like, hey, when I don't know, the comfort setting on my bike allows me to gain 3 more hits during travel than somebody else whose bike seat is really bad. And then what a great excuse to go to different places where there's a great leather worker who can make the perfect leather seat for your bike, and this person is known to get the proper leather to age it and make it soft and things like that. Yeah. Oh hell yeah. Mad Max vehicles with magic. Yes. Exactly. Yeah. Hey, it's not fueled by gasoline, it's fueled by spirits. It's the distilled evil spirits as a black gunk that goes into your vehicle and powers it across the landscape. Which D&D game was that? The Avernus one? Something like that. It was Mad Max Avernus, whatever. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. Thank you very much for letting me pontificate about Sons of Anarchy and using it as foundation for a tabletop game. I like finding little dumb things like that, like I don't know, it's just crazy things just to get our minds working, to think and just go, and maybe use that, right? Because how cool would it be for a player to have customized their own like riding vehicle, hover bike or something, and then this is like a megalopolis, right? This is a giant. What's the city? Acumenopolis. Acumenopolis. No. The name of a planet spanning city. Ecumenopolis. There we go. But yeah. It's the name. Sorry, there's a proper name for a planet covered by a city, and maybe the only real good way to get around this place is like with these like high-powered hover bikes, and what the players earned for their hover bike gains them entrance and access to places that they normally wouldn't because of how they enhanced it. And that's a great way to like honor or thank or tell the players like the thing that you're doing in the game, you're being rewarded for it. I found it. Have a nice day. No, tell me to have a nice day. You have one. Yeah, we're getting out of here. It's 7:00. So, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it, and thank you very much for letting me show off this idea about like Sons of Anarchy and talking about a show and biker gangs and whatnot, about how criminally minded they can be by being on the edge of society, but then there's also a part of society kicking them out to the edges of that society themselves, and being forced to have to bond together to survive, which can also be a great reasoning for why players are even in that position. Hey, we're Dungeons and Dragons adventurers not because we wanted to, but because all of us picked or were forced into um, society pushed us to the point of kicking us out. And then you can even ask as a game master and say like, all right, well, why aren't you part of regular society anymore? And then the players have to answer, well, I was part of a knight's order, but I rebelled against the leadership because they wanted to do something. They wanted to quell a rebellion, and they felt that the lycanthropic infestation got to everyone there, and so they ordered us to like murder kill everybody in the small town, and I refused to do it. And so not only did they do it, but they kicked me out and they cast me aside so that I would never my word would never be seen as just. So even if I did tell the authorities and the higher ups of what happened, they wouldn't believe me anyway. And so that's why I'm, despite the fact that I'm a knight or a paladin or something like that, as an honorable person, I'm living on the edge of the society. And it's like, cool, that's a really good idea. Okay, now you explain why, and everybody goes around the table, and then that becomes their bonding thing. Like, yeah, this society sucks. Now, a small portion of the storyline could be trying to convince the main society that to bring them back into the order, or maybe even trying to explain to the main society like, it's very corrupt. We aren't the corrupt ones, they are. We are rebellions to liberate you guys from the lies and intimidation that's around you and things like that. And then we go back to the players always wanting to be like, fist in the air rebels, F you. And hey, why not be able to live that through a tabletop role-playing game? So, as I mentioned before, Cyberpunk, Blades in the Dark are like the two that come to mind that really embrace that. Maybe like a Boot Hill or Deadlands as well. So guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Thank you also for just being, just stopping by and just being part of the group. I really appreciate it. Take a look at Sons of Anarchy, or do like a wiki deep dive, or like a YouTube retrospective video or podcast or something if it's something that you think you'd be interested in. So anyway, have a great day. Thank you very much. I will see thee tomorrow. Peace and tranquility. Nope. We need to have an outro, so we'll do this one.